In this video, in just 7 minutes, I will explain to you how to use Adobe Premiere Pro and make your first video today. And not to get lost, the time codes for the points of interest will be in the description. When you open Premiere Pro, you will see a picture like this, but without projects. Then you click on New Project, and here you can write the name of your project. Next, we click on Create. This is your workspace, and here you can see different panels. They all have their own functions, and this will be explained throughout the video. You can drag and drop these windows to make them bigger or smaller. You can move them around and place them in a different location or on a different monitor altogether. Or you can close them by right-clicking at the top and selecting Close Panel. You can go to the window menu at the top and find all the available panels depending on what you need. If you mess up your workspace, you can reset it by going to Workspaces and then back to your saved layout. To upload our video, picture, music to a project, you just go to the Project section and left-click 2 times and select the file you want, or just drag and drop it directly from the folder into Premiere Pro. However, if you load a lot of files, it will look pretty awful. So you can first of all choose a convenient format for you by choosing one of these 3 items, and secondly create a folder, give it a name, and move the necessary files there. And then, for example, open it and use it to your heart's content. Now let's finally start editing. To do this, drop the video onto the timeline. To play the video, press the spacebar on your keyboard or press this icon with your mouse. You will also see a preview window on the left. I don't use it much, but you should know its functionality because you may need it in some moments. To make the source monitor on the left view something else, if you double-click a video in the project window, the footage will be shown there. That's why it's called the source monitor. You can browse through the video to find specific parts you want and drag and drop them onto the project. Set endpoints by pressing the I button on your keyboard, then move the playback pointer to the end of the desired chunk and press O to set the endpoint. Now you can simply drag and drop the video onto the timeline. This will not delete in the remaining snippets. You can still trim the clip longer or shorter on the timeline. Now maybe your video was shot in 1920 by 1080 and you want to edit the video to 4K. Go to Sequence, then click on Sequence Settings and change the resolution to the resolution you want, including the number of frames per second. Now the timeline is a bit small, so to zoom in on your clips, you can use the scroll bars at the bottom and sides. You can also use Alt plus scroll wheel to zoom in and out. And if you're standing in the video track column, you can zoom in on the track itself and see thumbnails of clips or audio waveforms. To cut some moment from the video, just go to the razor tool using the mouse, or hotkey by pressing the letter C. Hotkeys in this program are very helpful, so I advise you to remember. And the first time, just point at the tool and there will be a hint what key you need to press. And don't forget to switch back by pressing the key V. Also, when editing, we can move the clips. Join them together. Don't forget to click on this magnet because this is what will happen without it. And this is what will happen if you turn it on. It's much more convenient. Also, click on that cursor. It will help you not just move each track separately, but do it with everything else too. If you put a video on top of another video, you'll see the video on top. And if you need that video, but don't want to see it yet, you can just click on that eye and lock the track so you don't accidentally delete or cut anything on that video. If you import a video but the audio doesn't come with it, it's probably because you accidentally disabled the audio track to re-enable it. Just make sure the input is active. The same can happen with your video track input, and drag and drop the footage and timeline and voila, everything is in place. Or maybe you have several tracks with audio and you want to delete something on only one of them, so hover over that track, press Alt and left click. This will select only one track. Or let's say you manually decide to synchronize the sound. Once you've done that, select everything you want to synchronize with each other, left click and then click Unlink, so all the tracks are now unsynchronized, and now do the same thing, but now click On Link and you're done. Now, you want to speed up your video, for example. Right click on the desired clip and selecting speed and duration here, simply increase the percentage. The higher you set it, the faster it will play. To slow down the clip, simply enter a lower percentage. If you want, you can also flip the video to play backwards. It also goes without saying that Premiere Pro has text. To do this, select it in the toolbar, go to the program monitor and just click. Now you can enter text by returning the selection tool, then we can move the text around the program monitor. You will also notice that there is a new graphic layer added to the timeline. This is your text, and we can place it on top of the video as it is now, or we can place it in an empty space so it doesn't have a background. Now let's customize our text. Go to the window menu at the top and find the desired graphic panel. Once it opens, you will see controls that you can use to scale the text or change its position. Maybe use a different font. You can change the color and so on. To make our text more interesting, we can move it around, apply effects, and all of this is done in the Effect Controls window. Now I want this text to move from left to right, which is done using the position property. To do this, we are going to create keyframes, which is done on the timeline of the clip. To do this, we put a keyframe that will start our animation, then scroll a little bit further and put another keyframe and change the parameters. For example, I want the text to move to the right To do this, I change the position and we have this simple animation. And if you want it to move faster, just move the keyframes closer together. This will give the text less time to move from A to B. And also, let's apply some effect to our video. There are quite a lot of built-in effects in Premiere Pro, so you have to memorize them, or you can create a separate folder and drop all these effects here just by moving the desired effect. Here you can find several folders with a bunch of stuff inside. Expand the video effects folder, and then let's go to the blur and sharpen folder. Here you can find the Gaussian blur effect. Let's drag and drop it into the video. Now let's go back to the effect controls, because every effect that you add to the clip will also appear here in the effect controls. Now each effect has its own properties, and for Gaussian blur, we can increase the blur to make it, of course, blurry. And as you can see, there's also a stopwatch icon in front of the blur property. Let's say we want to create a transition where the video goes from blurred to sharp. To do that, move the playback point to the first frame of the video and then increase the blur until nothing is visible. Click the stopwatch icon to create a keyframe and go to hat playback. Now, move further back in time and set the blur to 0. And now you have a simple transition again. If you want it to play faster, just drag the keyframes closer together. Now let's create a transition between clips. In the effects window, find the video transitions folder and expand it. Scroll down until you see the icon in the slides folder. Drag a push transition between two clips on the timeline. And as you can see, this creates a transition. You can actually speed up or slow down the transition by dragging it longer or shorter. Oh, and a little tip. If you want to add a fade in transition, select the beginning of the clip and press Ctrl-D on your keyboard to apply the default transition to your clip, which is fade out. If your computer isn't pulling a transition, you can pre-render it so that right now it will play for you without lags. To do this, use the I and O keys to select the desired area and then press enter. Now this fragment is green and plays as it should. Also in Premiere, there is a color correction to open it. Go to the window and find the color panel Lumetri. Here you can find the basic controls such as temperature, hue saturation, and other controls such as exposure contrast, shadow highlighting, and so on. I advise you to watch separate tutorials, including on my YouTube channel on how to work with this tab, as it can be quite time consuming. Now, let's move on to audio processing, just as important as video. If you want to change the volume of an audio clip, you can do so by dragging down the gain curve on the clip itself. Let's go to the window and find an easy-to-use panel for audio mixing. Now just select the type of sound you're working on and boom, you can play around with the volume, panning, reverb, and more. We're done editing. Now we need to export the video. Premiere will pull all your changes together and burn them into one video file. But how do we export the video? To do this, you need to select the fragment you want to save using the familiar I and O keys, and then press Ctrl+M. I've already recorded a video on how to properly export a video in Premiere Pro. You can watch it right now using the tooltip in the top right corner or the link in the description. And so you've built a foundation, but Premiere Pro can take years to learn. Instead, just subscribe to my channel and watch little tutorials on this great program. Bye everyone!